What's up, you guys? I am currently 34 weeks pregnant with baby number 2, and in the last video I talked about baby's position in the womb, and I also said that I was going to share what I'm doing in the 3rd trimester to promote optimal positioning. So that's what this video is about, so let's get to it. I'm Anna Valcarney, and I love helping mamas just like you have a better birth experience. So if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding the little bell down below. Oh my gosh, it's crazy to think that I only have 6-ish weeks left of pregnancy because it literally has flown by. And I know I've been so lucky to just have had an easygoing pregnancy so far, and the only thing that I really notice is that I get tired quicker, and that's likely because I have a toddler who is 19 months and also this big growing belly. Like right now, I'm kind of like out of breath. So anyways, starting at 28 weeks, I began focusing on relaxing my pelvic floor muscles, lengthening any tightened or shortened muscles, and making sure that my rib cage and pelvis can move freely. And just how no two births are the same, I truly believe that prepping for birth should be something that is unique to your individual needs. And although there are some common birth prep things that mamas can do and benefit from, like taking a solid childbirth class, exercising, pelvic floor work, eating dates, and whatnot, birth prep really should be something that is individualized and doesn't just start at 37 weeks pregnant. And if you are preparing for an unmedicated birth and want a little guidance, I do offer one-on-one virtual birth prep that's tailored to you. So just click the link down in the description box below so we can chat about your goals and whatnot. So before we get into my routine, just remember that my imbalances are different from yours. So there may be some things that you don't necessarily need to do. For instance, your joints might be hypermobile and you need more stability rather than mobility. Or your hamstrings might not be tight, whereas mine are. So assess your body and even see a pelvic floor PT to determine what your restrictions are. So that hormone relaxant that you've heard about, that helps relax your muscles and ligaments, making room for baby and making it easier for your pelvis to move freely for birth. And this hormone is actually present in our body pre-pregnancy as it's released during our menstrual cycle. But pre-pregnancy, it's actually present at very, very low levels, almost undetectable. And when we are pregnant, it actually peaks at the end of the 1st trimester. So when it comes to relaxin, the way that I think about it is, as I'm preparing my body for birth, is I want to work with relaxin to help prepare my body to birth my baby. But I'm also very cognizant about not pushing it too far, because that can just cause instability, pain, and more discomfort all around. So with my first pregnancy, I also had a 3rd trimester routine, but it's a bit different now that I have an anterior placenta and carry a toddler on and off throughout the day. So just a warning, my routine usually takes about 30 to 45 minutes, so I typically try to do this at night when baby girl is asleep, but this video will be sped up a bit, so you're not gonna have to sit through the entire thing. So let's jump into my current 3rd trimester routine. Okay, so I typically start off by getting into a child's pose. Then I hold that for about 3 breaths and really just focus on breathing into my pelvic floor. Then I throw in some side stretches to the left and to the right. Next up, I get into an all-fours position, and this is where I do some posterior pelvic tilts, really just working with my breath here. And then I move into around the world, which is just really good for all around hip mobility, and I also do the other side. Next up, I get into a half kneeling position and stretch out my hip flexors. In this stretch, I like to focus on tucking my butt under by doing a posterior pelvic tilt and then shooting my hips forward. So you really isolate that stretch to the hip flexors. I also throw in an overhead reach to the other side to really stretch out that side body and open up that rib cage. Then I also add in a hamstring stretch, and I am definitely tight on my right side more so than the left, so I spend a little bit more time here. From there, I switch to the other side and repeat the same sequence, but I do spend a little bit more time on my right side because my right hip flexors are tighter than my left. So from there, I get into an all fours position and work on some thoracic mobility, and I do about 5 open books on each side. Then I get into what's called a pigeon pose, and I work on stretching out my hip external rotators. I'm pretty tight on my right side, so I spend a lot more time on the right side than I do the left. I also use some yoga blocks, especially on the right side, because I don't have as much mobility on that side. So I just put it underneath my butt so that it provides me with some support and that I can relax into the stretch a little bit more. From there, I work on some asymmetrical movement of my pelvis, and I just place a yoga block under one knee while shifting weight to the other side. And then I just go back and forth into a child's pose and breathe into my pelvic floor. Then I do the exact same thing on the right side. Working on some asymmetrical movements of the pelvis really helps baby with that rotation once they're in the mid pelvis during labor. Then I do some windshield wipers. This is great for hip mobility, specifically internal external rotation. I also add in some reaches for an added stretch. Again, I do focus more on my right side than I do my left when it comes to internal and external rotation. Then I just do a quick mobility check and try to work through internal rotation. Really great for opening up that outlet when it's time to push. Then I just get into a simple calf stretch where I hold for a few breaths on each side. Then I get into a deep squat where I focus on relaxing my pelvic floor, and I also add in some overhead reaches and thoracic rotation. Then I move into a puppy dog pose, and this is a less intense version of the forward leaning in version, but it just feels really good to add in. Nice stretch for the upper back and helps baby get into a good position. Then it's time for the birth ball. So I hop on my birth ball for a little bit and I do some posterior pelvic tilts and throw in some hip circles in both directions, hip dips with some overhead reaches, just focusing on all around pelvic mobility and opening up that rib cage again. I go back onto the floor where I do some lat stretches and some side body stretches again. And lastly, I finish off my routine by going into a forward-leaning inversion that I learned from spinning babies. This is really great for releasing the lower uterine ligaments, and it just allows you to utilize gravity so that baby can have a little bit more space in the womb and adjust so that they can get into a better position. So I usually hold this position for about 3 to 4 breaths and repeat for 3 to 4 rounds. So that wraps up this video on how I'm preparing my body in the 3rd trimester. And if you're preparing for an unmedicated birth and want a course that is not only packed with information, but also teaches you what to do with that information, then click the link down below for more info on the Natural Birth Blueprint, which is available now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.